Motherfuckers, ladies, motherfuckers, gentlemen, and all y'all motherfuckers, ladies or gentlemen. Seriously, for my LGBTQ family, a special coffee with Dragon. If you don't know, I'm also a poet, a social commentary, a theorist, spiritual teacher, and rapper. So I've begun with a little bit of a more of a rap enthusiasm. And now it's a special coffee with Dragon. Pour yourself some coffee. We're gonna do a brief but serious business. Which is going to be the business of a financial business. Once again, financial matters. And it's gonna be specifically around revolving around the question of the Argentine financial crisis, Argentina, and also revolving around the dealings with NAFTA concerning North America. Of course, myself a citizen of North America, Canada, world citizen, of course, but nonetheless, the issue concerning NAFTA and the deadline until tomorrow, Friday, to reach some sort of an agreement, and it seems that it's not looking so good here. The future economic, commercial, and financial, of course, dealings. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't heard yet, there's been an ongoing crisis of a financial crisis that is also, of course, financial economic crisis in Argentina. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know where Argentina is, slap your head 3 times with the left hand on the right side of your head and with the right hand 3 times on the left side of your head. No liabilities if you get hurt for that one. Not liable for any damage psychologically, spiritually, mentally, or any otherwise that you might incur. Argentina, world citizens, citizens of the world, liberal socialists, socialist liberals, internationalists. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Listen, this is serious business. I'm really concerned about this. It's really close to my heart. And financially, if I could help somehow, somewhat, cannot. Don't have a penny right now in my pocket. Got a heart full of open to all for love, free love for everybody. But besides that, my poetry, my workouts, my creativity, financially, I'm precarious still. So, ladies and gentlemen, Argentina is a massive. Not sure why I'm reading, of course, because I want to get more information. So I'm looking at the news now to see the newest information on Argentina. The new developments, because it seems like the markets are down in Asia as we speak. Of course, as I'm speaking, as I'm drinking this coffee and speaking to my holy guardian angels, of course, to yours truly, anybody, brothers and sisters, whether you know anything about finance or not. Important is that we are all in this together. We need to work to world peace, world security, and world prosperity. One day at a time, one poem at a time, one workout at a time. Work out with me. Facebook friend me. Let's work out weekly. Right. Argentina. Argentina is a massive South American nation. Massive or not, it's guessing the word or whatever. Massive meaning big country. South American nation with terrain encompassing Andes Mountains, glacial lakes, and pampas grasslands. The traditional grazing ground for its famed beef cattle. The country is famous for tango, dance, and music. Now the expression takes two to tango. Tango land, baby, tango. Love dancing, love music, so I'm a little bit of a freak for this, but not in that sense that it's dissociated from financial matters, because although we can dance for free, financial health and recovery is important as well. So we dance even more, right? Of a good drink, of a prosperity. Its big cosmopolitan capital, Buenos Aires, is centered on the Playa de Mayo line with stately 19th century buildings including Casa Rosada, the iconic balconed presidential palace. So Buenos Aires is the capital of Argentina, and currency is the Argentine peso. Argentine is both can go, but anyways, that's not the case here. Linguistics is what matters, right? Argentine peso, which has been hit, and now this is linked to the Turkish lira going down because of 2 weeks ago with the problems there of the inflation. And from my understanding, they both countries have relative strong economic ties and trade and import and export. But capital Buenos Aires population's around 43.83 million. That's in 2016 according to the World Bank, right? The World Bank does also, it's not just financial matters but also population surveys and what have you. For Spanish is spoken, but other languages are spoken. So now a little bit about Argentina, of course, very, very, very little because there's so much to Argentina, right? To Argentinian history that we will not be able to cover with this Cuban coffee here. But let's try to see what's in the news, what's going on. So the Guardian reported 10 hours ago this Argentina raises interest rates to 60% to shore up peso. That is, wow, such a move. Of course, when it says here Argentina, it means the Central Bank of Argentina, right? The decision body of the financial system of this, the central banking, right? So the Guardian 8 hours ago says markets are all about the timing, and Argentina got clocked. Of course, that's very vague. What does it mean exactly? We'll have to read it more. But I'm just reading the main headlines now just to get an idea of what's going on with Argentina and if it's going to be a contagion. It was in Turkey, it stopped contagion a bit, and another one. But Argentina hikes interest rate to 60%, highest in the world. Can you imagine that? That's insane. So Argentina hikes interest rate to 60%, highest in the world. Can you imagine? Now, this is very, very strange. It's maybe not even seen on this short-term financial move. Other news, the Financial Times, Argentine peso tumbles to new low despite interest rate rise 3 hours ago. So the peso dropped just like it happened with the Turkish lira, right? It dropped in value, and usually when it drops in value, it is against the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar is still the main currency in the world, circulating in the world, right? So take this for instance, which I've saved, this United States dollar, which if you see there has of course serial number in its you can look at the light and see that it's a real one, right? Anyways, it's series 2009, right? It says there at the bottom. So this has been printed in 2009, but its value since then has fluctuated, and it's interesting because that's when the financial crisis happened. So was this the dollar part of the injection of funds from the United States? And of course it traveled to me. Somehow it dealt something on the foreign exchange, something, and it got it into my hand, right? So our own part of the $1 of the total supply of US dollars. Of course, there's trillions in the world. But needless to say, just to say that the US dollar is still the currency of exchange for world markets, especially petroleum commodity, the commodity of petroleum, the barrels, right? Petroleum, tourism, of course. So it's an international currency. Of course, the euro as well, but and the British pound, of course, and other currencies. Canadian dollar is in the top 10 of the world, I believe so. But nonetheless, by far, the unit, the currency of choice of the world is still the United States dollar. So world commerce, world transactions, yens into yuans and pesos and liras and shekels and Romanian leis. Well, now it's euros, Russian rubles. No, rubles crumbles them rumbles when they fumble. And African currencies, of course, right? Mexican peso. Remember, there's different pesos, right? You have peso, you have Cuban pesos, you have two types of Cuban peso. Anyways, so you get the idea. We get the idea. Well, we need to know more. We need to know more because superficial news like this, we got to get more in depth, right? How, what, when did it start? How did it start? Well, these are questions. Sometimes we don't have all the answers, but sometimes just the question is important, right? Like this discussion here, coffee with drag. What questions am I to pose? Let's say we take by the head the politely, of course, like we invite him over a cup of coffee and we'll have you sit down. The Argentinian central banker, right? The Central Bank of Argentina. I'm not sure who is it, Central Bank of Argentina. But we can find out. Let's say we have him over and we invite him and say, what's with this 60% interest rate hike? There we go. Central Bank of Argentina, President Louis Caputo. The bank was founded in May 28, 1935, so before the Second World War. Headquarters is in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So the Central Bank of the Argentine Republic is the Central Bank of Argentina, which, of course, oversees, secures, and all the internal and, to a certain degree, the external, because when it comes to international trade, meaning exports and imports, it's involved. It's all involved. But basically, the printing of the money, increasing the money supply, and what have you, right? Right. So the central bank, let's say we invite Mr. Caputo, Caputo, and we have a discussion. We ask what's with this 60% hike, what's happening? And then we'll say, well, we had to do this because the currency was falling. Falling? What do you mean? Was it falling against world currencies, especially the US dollar? How come? For X and Y reasons. Well, he might say that, well, our exports decreased over the past 10 years. We had high unemployment, not a lot of foreign direct investment, FDI called foreign direct investment, meaning people with capital who invest in other countries. So the capital travels, right? Right now, as I'm speaking, the markets, it's 11 o'clock in Japan, where it's in Beijing is 10 a.m. So it's open, the stock market. In Cairo, city of the pyramids, blessed be eternally, it's 4 a.m. so they're not open. Jerusalem is 5 a.m. so them heathen are still snoring. Tokyo, it's 11 a.m. in Tokyo. See, so in Tokyo the markets are now, it's morning, it's trading. A lot of people have their eye on this, right? In the stock market, what's their relation investment to their Argentinian peso? Question would be, do a lot of Japanese hold pesos? Have they lost? Are they panicking? What's going on, right? People's investor, let's say I would be a Japanese investor, Right now, 11 o'clock, I'm seeing, man, I have invested in Argentinian peso. I had last week. I had $3 million. Now it's only worth 2.2, and it's going down. What do I do? Do I sell? What do I do? Right, right. So the panic and for losing weight, speculation. You know how speculation works. So we speculate. Oh, it will go down. Then other people say it will go down, and other people say, well, no, it's gonna stabilize. They did this and that. They did that move. It's gonna stabilize. So there's a lot of information, of course, to digest and see clearly from a lot of confusion. But it can be seen clearly if you ask the right question, and if you ask it a second time and understand it more, and the third time if you reach full, total, complete understanding, wisdom and knowledge, or wisdom, understanding and knowledge. They can be in different sequences, but they're all integrated. The knowledge is integrated with the wisdom and the understanding, like in a pyramid, and within your own psyche and mental capabilities, facilities, to discern the matters, right? So, a lot of questions. I would have a lot of questions for Mr. Louis Caputo. So let's go back again. Let's see what's going on here, because it seems like it's no good. This could be better. This could be, don't like for the gloom and doom and worst case scenarios. I have a lot of optimism for my own healing, physically, spiritually, and financially, and for the whole world, for the whole human race. So I'm drinking this coffee and trying to reach out, have a conversation, see what we can do together, see how you can teach me something. Maybe you know more of the answers to my questions. What if you studied this? You have an opinion, you have a solution. Join me, YouTube, Facebook, together. Right. So what's the deal? What's going on? What's going on? It's problematic. That's what's going on financially for Argentina, and it can be because of contagion, the risk of contagion. Can be worldwide. Could in a few weeks, days, weeks, months can reach worldwide. So Argentina hikes interest rate to 60% to bid to halt currency's fall. So this is the main reason why the interest rate was hiked to 60%. Highest in the world, the central bank. In Canada is what, 1.25 today, right? It's been hiked 3 times in the past, but it's lowest it's been in decades. 60%. Shouldn't it? What the fuck? What the fuck? Excuse my profanity myself, but sometimes you gotta say it. What the fuck? To hold currencies fall. So we know that the currencies fall, mostly against the US dollar. Now, we would have to look, of course, deeper and ask more questions. How much trade, import export, does Argentina have? And how big, if any, is the what? Trade deficit. By how much do they import more than they export? Or do they actually export more than they import? But that, logically, although in economics and financial matters, and these, it's not necessarily precise science necessarily, because there's also behavioral economics and investor spending. It's based on psychology and emotions, right? It's not just mathematics and 2 plus 2, right, equals 4. Yeah, sometimes it's, and of course it's not all black and white. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of color there, a lot of factors at play. But nonetheless, the currency fell, right? Fell. So Financial Times says Argentina is stricken by a crisis of confidence. Financial Times reports Argentine peso tumbles to new low despite interest rate high to new low. The New York Times says Argentina raises rates as emerging markets turbulence spreads. And this emerging markets goes to Turkey. Because Turkey is an emerging market. Usually the like also the BRICS. It's called Turkey, Argentina, Brazil. You know, Argentina hikes interest rate to 60% as peso crashes. And this, see, they use another word here, crashes. You know, usually a crash is when the currency really goes down and devaluated against other world currencies. We have a loss of percent, 50%, 60%, 30%, 30, 40, 50%. This can be very bad. Can be very bad. Argentina hikes interest rate to 60% as peso crashes. Argentina raises rates as peso plummets, BBC News reports. Last one here, we'll read the Economic Times reports. Argentina now has highest interest rate in the world. That's 60%. What's gonna borrow? What's gonna you can't repay at that rate. He's 60%. What the fuck? What a mess. This is a mess. Okay, so we will be reading from the Financial Times. Decided the freshest one 3 hours ago. So we'll be doing a little bit of reading here and analysis, commentary, of course. Financial Times is pretty reputable, pretty more solid, of course, financial matters. Remember, I used to read it as a kid. What are you doing reading the Financial Times? Read comic books. I read comic books also. I read also the Financial Times sometimes. Always learning, always learning. So, Argentine peso tumbles to new low despite interest rate rise. Drastic central bank action results in increase to 60%. Can you imagine? To read the full article, please do one of the following. Question 105. Now they're going to question. Forget about that. So anyways, let's stay on this, and hopefully financial healing will come to myself, my allies, my friends, and of course our Argentinian brothers and sisters. We do not want it to degenerate. Okay, answer the question. So now we get the article. Let's read a bit. Drastic action by Argentina's central bank on Thursday failed to arrest the plunge in the peso, which ended a dramatic trading session down almost 12%. The central bank racketed up interest rates to 60%, a 15 percentage point increase aimed at arresting a currency collapse that has threatened the credibility of the country's 3-year-old reformist government. Bad stuff, brothers. The move appeared to do little to reassure investors, however, in the peso, which has now lost roughly half its value this year. So, like, remember when I was saying about if I'm a Japanese investor, if I had that, like, let's say 3 million at the beginning of the year, right, and it goes down, it's only worth 1.5. So that was money that somebody had, maybe less. Let's say an investor had $50,000, a Japanese investor, regular guy, $50,000 saved over 10 years, whatever. He invested in currency. He had some of that, at least 30,000 or 10,000 of his investments in Japanese, or in the peso, right? He lost value, dropped. The move appeared to do little to reassure investors, however, and the peso, which has now lost roughly half its value this year, fell almost 18% at its worst, before bearing a little of the loss. At the end of the U.S. trading day, which is, of course, at 4:30 EST mostly, Eastern Standard Time, which Argentina is pretty much on the Central and Eastern Standard Time in America. At the end of the U.S. trading day, it was down almost 12% at 38.53 pesos to the US dollar. So for a US dollar, I've just showed you, We buy so many pesos, 38.5853, 38 and a half pesos for this US dollar. And interestingly enough, this dollar that I have here is from 2009, right? So the US dollar appreciated against the peso 12%, while the peso, of course, depreciated. It's a big percentage in a day straight. So imagine in hundreds of thousands of dollars, all the forex, all the investors, of course, the banks and the bigger investors and the institutional investors such as BlackRock, Blackstone, and the financiers, Mr. George Soros, for example, if he's still involved, Berkshire Hathaway, of course, other, of course, such we're at forex, different levels. I'll probably have to stay on this and do a lot of trading with this. A lot of trading. A 2 day sell-off was triggered by President Mauricio Macri on Wednesday, surprising the market by asking the International Monetary Fund to speed up the release of its 50 billion. Do remind people that a billion is a thousand million once again, because this conversation is important to situate ourselves in the world economy. And when we speak of macroeconomic levels, it's billions, right? And we do not have a lot of billionaires. We have a few, but there's not a lot of people who have $50 billion, right, in capital, or can spawn it to have so much liquid capital, $50 billion, right? So this is important here, so we know more a little bit from, of course, what we know. Just a little, we can always know more because there's a lot to it, to how come and what, right? The overall picture of the integration of Argentina in the past 33 years or so, since whatever 1984, in the world economic markets in the world. I mean, since the financial markets became more and more integrated, right? It's been slowly integration in even decades, and of course way back, but it's speeded up, of course, since 1984, whatever the year or the month exactly, but it's been on the increase, right? So a 2 day sell-off was triggered by President Mauricio Macri, MACRI, on Wednesday, surprising the market by asking the International Monetary Fund to speed up the release of its 50 billion bailout package to shore up next year's budget. So asking the IMF, right? Of course, the IMF, there are certain conditions that the International Monetary Fund imposes, right? It's not to get a loan of $50 billion. It's not that easy. But of course, so he asked a speed up the release, right, of this 50 billion bailout package. So the International Monetary Fund was going to offer this bailout package, of course, with a lot of conditions for the economy internally and how it relates to the world economy, exports, imports, and all the rest of the dealings. So it comes amid mounting jitters across multiple emerging markets. Like I said before, my analysis is that this new development, unfortunate financial crisis for Argentina, and the decline of the peso, the drop of the peso, and this specifically here is also related to 2 weeks ago when we spoke, even last week, about the Turkish financial crisis, which also was related to its currency. The lira, of course, dropped in the past 3 months a lot, and in the past 3 weeks, really a lot, right? And there were a lot of problems because of that, because of contagion to emerging markets, right? Because these emerging markets are important when they do dealings with themselves and with the big markets such as the United States of America, the G7, formerly the G8, because of course Russia was there by 4 years ago, 2014, and after the whole Crimea situation and world peace. Oh, it's now the G7 again, right? G7, of course, the United States of America, Italy, Germany, France, England, Canada. So, let's continue. What does it say here? It comes amid mounting jitters across multiple emerging markets as a strengthening dollar, buoyed by a fast-growing U.S. economy and a Federal Reserve committed to a series of rate increases, has raised questions over whether companies and governments in the developing world will be able to pay off their dollar-denominated debt. This is important. I'm going to read it again because it comes to what I've said at the beginning, and I'm going to comment there now. So it comes amid mounting jitters across multiple emerging markets, of which, of course, Turkey, keep in mind, is one, as a strengthening dollar buoyed by a fast-growing U.S. economy and a Federal Reserve committed to a series of rate increases has raised questions over whether companies and governments in the developing world will be able to pay off their dollar-denominated debt. So most of the debt that, of course, it's integrated more or less, depending on, have to go case by case, which country and with what exactly. But usually with the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and of course the BIS, Bank for International Settlements. So a lot of the countries in the world, they have different levels of debt, national debt, right? And most of this debt, of course, not the United States of America, because it, but they have it in US dollars. That's why it says here, it comes in amid mounting jitters across multiple emerging markets as a strengthening dollar. So the dollar, the US dollar here, this one printed in 2009, when I remember my hours being reduced by a lot. It's 3 times in a few months, going from 35 to 30 and to 25 hours a week, in retail. Anyways, but meaning what it says here is that strengthening dollar, the dollar has strengthened against other currencies. So meaning that in the past months or so, a US dollar buys more of the other nations' currencies, right? In terms of percentage, you could have, right? Yeah. So in other words, the economic term for this is appreciation. So the dollar appreciated, appreciated. Now we'll not go into the dynamics of that, because by how much and what is also important in the macro international trade scale, and it's not necessarily such always and all the time a good thing. It's good for buying foreign goods, for importing, tourism, but in other areas it can affect. So depending on how much appreciation and what and exactly and with what other currencies, it's also a more refined and has to be more refined understanding of that. So Federal Reserve committed to a series of rate increases. So the Fed also, right, increased the lending rate. Has raised question over whether companies and governments in the developing world will be able to pay off their dollar-denominated debt. And because most of the countries in the world have a debt based in dollars, in US dollars. And now, see, it mentions here what I've just said. In the article it mentions this, and of course I was thinking it's for sure is going to mention it. The Turkish lira has been the other hardest hit emerging market currency amid questions over whether a newly empowered President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has proclaimed himself an enemy of high interest rates. I don't like high interest rates. Also, I believe the working people, people who own a small business, individual artists such as myself who are struggling to make a living should be, a credit card student, though the rate should be very low, but even low interest rates, very low interest rates. A newly empowered President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has proclaimed himself an enemy of high interest rates, has tightened his grip on the country's central bank. The concerns were exacerbated by the pending resignation of the deputy governor of the central bank, Erkan Kimlici, who will move to Turkey's development bank. The lira fell as much as 5% against the dollar on Thursday. So see, of course this is 3 hours ago, so this Thursday, today, now as I'm doing it's 10:22 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 5% is a big, in one day, the lira to fall against the dollar as much as 5%. Listen, if you, let's say if you would have a foreign investor, foreign extras, and you would have had, I don't know, let's say $1,000, right? That's $50. $10,000, 500. So 5% is a lot in one day. I'm talking about, right? This is one day here under a trade. It's a big drop of the lira. So lira depreciates, continues its depreciation, its fall. If it's gonna keep on falling for a few days, a few percentages like this, it's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be contagion. It can be big time contagion. Turkish and Argentine turmoil helped trigger a broader sell-off in the developing world's markets. The FTSE Emerging Index and that's the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. FTSE stands for Frankfurt am Main. It's in Germany. Of emerging market equities fell as much as 1.3%, its biggest decline in 3 weeks. Anyways, this can be bad. We'll continue. Keep an eye on this.